We are so honored to be joined by National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, Cindy Woodhouse Nepinak. Cindy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
And welcome to BC.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Yeah.
Now, you just addressed the Assembly for the BC Chiefs. Can you give us a summary of what you mentioned to the Chiefs this morning in your speech?
Oh, absolutely. Look, we talked about justice issues. I had visited a penitentiary, and it was really difficult to be there, and I kind of explained my experience on that. And it was hard to see so many First Nations people in the justice system and behind bars, and to know that those were once just our kids growing up in our communities. So what more can we do? And I commend the leadership around the table for being here and for trying to find solutions to better the lives of First Nations people in this province and across the country and in their communities. But I also commended them for their work on the justice, their justice report, their justice blueprint that, I think many First Nations right across the country will begin to follow with the work that's done right here in BC. And so we talked about that, and we talked about policing. Sometimes there's over-policing towards First Nations off reserve, but yet on reserve there's under-policing. And we need a new strategy and a new First Nations policing system in place for our people to make sure that the gaps are filled and that we're not left out anymore.
Do you have a message for those that are behind bars, that are waiting for that justice and possibly has been served injustice in their case?
It was really tough to see that, and I think also, we want to make hope, right, for their kids. If sometimes let's focus on our children, and if we can try and fix some of the systems that happen towards our little ones, our children and our grandchildren, we're going to make a better life for all of us. We're going to be up against bail systems. I commend Regional Chief TG for pushing back. I know last week that he had made a strong presentation in the House of Commons, as well as the Assembly of First Nations, on the bail reform that they're trying to push forward. But they have to remember that we have a voice too, and Parliament needs to open up their eyes and their ears when they're talking about justice issues to make sure that the voices of First Nations are at those tables as well.
Absolutely. And speaking of the voices, we still are dealing with a number of crisis issues in this country. We've got the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls issue, the murdered and missing men, and the opioid crisis. What is the AFN doing to advance those causes and to get some solutions there?
Well, we did do, we are calling for a national inquiry, of course, and, and pushing for, an emergency on opioid and the drug crisis. And look, our every community is dealing with it from coast to coast to coast. And it was so prevalent that First Nations were united in their discussions on that. And look, we got to make sure that we're pushing Canada as a whole to no longer, poverty isn't an option anymore. First Nations have always been left in poverty, left to the back to bricklay jobs, or not that there's anything wrong with that, but at the same time, that's always where Canada wants us. And we have to keep pushing to make sure that we're pushing for more of a voice in this country, and to make sure that if they're going to start talking about big national projects, that First Nations are at those tables as owners and as wealth generators, rather than pushing them aside and saying, we'll give you a little bit here, but leave us alone. Gone are those days. And I hope that the sooner this country realizes that, the better. And I think any smart company would be engaging with First Nations sooner and earlier, as soon as it's a thought that you're talking to the First Nations on the ground, wherever that may be.
And on a personal note, what's it like for you as a woman, as the National Chief of the AFN, and what's it been like in your leadership role, if you can share a bit with us?
It's, I'm thankful that I'd seen I'm glad that I've worked for previous National Chiefs like Sean Atleo, Perry Bellegarde, Phil Fontaine, and other chiefs across the country, Derek Nepinak, others, and I'm glad that I didn't mean to be in this role, and I was born, my dad was a counselor and then a chief, and I was always a chief's daughter, and that was really difficult growing up. And at the same time, it's, you're focused, you have to be focused, and you have to think of others before yourself, because it is duty, right? And you need prayer, you need God to help you, you need Creator to help you guide your days, because it could be very, very busy. So I feel for the next National Chief already, and I'm praying for them, that they're getting ready in their life, whomever that may be. But I look forward to the years ahead and trying my best to help First Nations every day. I can't fix everything, but what I can fix, I will, and I'll try my best to do so. That's all I can do, and that's all I can commit. So thank you.
We thank you for joining us today, and congratulations on all the work you've done so far in your leadership. Thank you.